Before Mesmoralia, The Hollowing, a prequel in the anthology. Part 1, The First Hall. The city had a different name then. Meridian, they called it, a place of commerce and prayer, of ordinary sins and ordinary redemptions. The Cathedral of St. Cyril stood at its heart, white stone, reaching toward a heaven that still seemed to listen. Dr. Novum, Liss, first noticed the phenomenon in the winter of 1847. A woman came to his surgery on a Tuesday morning, complaining of a peculiar emptiness. "I feel nothing," she told him, her hands folded neatly in her lap. "My daughter died 3 days ago. I should be devastated. Instead, I'm just here." He examined her thoroughly. Her pulse was steady, her breathing normal, her color good. But when he looked into her eyes, he saw something that made him step back involuntarily. They were like glass beads, reflective but not luminous, present but not alive. "Mrs. Hartwell," he said carefully, "when did you last feel anything? Anything at all?" She thought about this with the detachment of someone solving a mathematics problem. "The night Margaret died, I was with her, holding her hand. She asked me to forgive her for something, I don't remember what now. And I said yes, of course I forgave her. But I was lying." She looked at him with those terrible, empty eyes. "I didn't forgive her. I was angry that she was dying and leaving me alone. And the moment I spoke that lie, while my daughter drew her last breath, she touched her chest. Something left, like a bird from a cage I didn't know I had. Within 2 weeks, Dr. Liss had documented 7 more cases. A banker who'd embezzled from widows, a teacher who'd seduced a student, a mother who'd drowned her infant in a moment of despair. All of them reported the same sensation, a sudden, complete evacuation of feeling, as if some essential part of them had simply departed. The newspapers called it moral anesthesia. The priests called it divine judgment. Dr. Liss called it a medical crisis. Part 2, The Cathedral's Fall. Father Benedict had been rector of St. Cyril's for 23 years when the first hollow one walked through his doors. Thomas Greer, a dock worker, had beaten a man to death over a card game. He came to confession not out of remorse. He was incapable of it now, but out of habit, the way one might polish shoes or sweep a floor. "Bless me, Father, for I have sinned," he said in a voice like ash. "I killed a man last Thursday. I feel I should probably repent." Father Benedict tried everything he knew. He prayed over Thomas, pressed a crucifix to his forehead, led him through acts of contrition. Nothing penetrated. The man was functionally soulless, going through the motions of humanity without its substance. Others came. Soon, Father Benedict's confessional became a strange tribunal of the emotionally dead, each reciting sins they could no longer feel. It was Sister Magdalene, young then, barely 30, with dark hair and fierce eyes, who first suggested the unthinkable. "They need to feel again," she told Father Benedict. "They need to remember what it was to be human, even briefly." "How?" he asked. exhausted from weeks of fruitless prayer. "The body remembers what the soul forgets," she said. Physical sensation, pleasure, pain, the cathedral could provide. A different kind of sanctuary. He should have refused. He should have expelled her from the order. Instead, he looked at the growing number of hollow ones wandering the streets of Meridian, and he made a choice that would damn them all. Within a month, the cathedral's basement, once a meeting hall for charitable works, had been transformed. Soft lights, silk curtains, warmth. The hollow ones came seeking any sensation that might remind them they were alive. Pleasure, pain, the warmth of another body. And those who still had their souls came too, drawn by morbid curiosity or darker needs. Sister Magdalene ran it with the efficiency she'd once applied to managing the church's accounts. She told herself it was mercy. She told herself it was a kind of healing. She stopped wearing her habit. She stopped attending Mass. And one night, while lying with a hollow merchant who paid in gold to feel something, anything, she felt her own soul depart, a small, wounded thing that had finally had enough. She became Magdalene, no saint, no sister, just another hollow one running a house of substituted grace. Part 3, the medical solution. Dr. Novum Liss couldn't save them, but he could study them. His clinic expanded. He documented every case, searching for patterns, seeking a cure. The hollow ones fascinated him, the way they mimicked humanity so perfectly while being fundamentally absent. His colleague, Dr. Adeliza Moth, became obsessed in a different way. She was brilliant, 32, unmarried, devoted entirely to the science of the mind. When Liss showed her his research on the hollowing, she saw not a mystery, but a mechanism. If the soul can leave, she reasoned, then something must fill the space it leaves behind. Nature abhors a vacuum. She began her experiments in secret. First on animals, then on volunteers, hollow ones who had nothing left to lose. She tried to craft artificial souls, electrical stimulation of the brain, chemical compounds meant to simulate emotion, mechanical hearts designed to beat with feeling. Nothing worked, not quite, but she got close enough to fool some people. The Moth Institute for Psychological Restoration opened on Merchant Street in 1851. It promised renewal of purpose and restoration of feeling. What it delivered were sophisticated frauds, medications that produced euphoria, but not joy, treatments that created physical sensations that mimicked emotional responses. The hollow ones who could afford it bought Adeliza's artificial souls. They wore them like prosthetics, going through life with manufactured feelings that never quite fit right. Adeliza told herself she was helping. She told herself this even as she conducted her most dangerous experiment on herself. She hadn't lost her soul to any great sin. Her crime was subtler. She'd spent so long studying the hollow ones, trying to understand their absence, that she'd forgotten to tend to her own presence. Her soul had simply drifted away bored or neglected, seeking somewhere it was needed. She woke one morning and knew it was gone, and rather than panic, she felt relief. Now she could study the condition from the inside. Now she could perfect her work. She closed the institute 3 months later, taking only her research notes, and simply walked away into the city that was no longer Meridian, that was becoming something else, something in between. Part 4, The First Broker. Silas Crow had been a priest before everything changed. A minor priest, a reader of last rites, a keeper of the poorest parish in Meridian. He'd watched his congregation hollow out one by one. Good people, most of them, who'd committed small sins that somehow severed them from grace. He'd prayed for them, buried them when the hollowing killed them, and felt his faith erode like a cliff face in a storm. The night his wife left her body, she'd lied under oath to save him from a charge of theft he'd actually committed. Silas had felt her soul depart. It brushed past him like a cold wind, and he'd grabbed for it instinctively and caught it. It was impossible, but he held it. A small, warm light in his cupped palms, poolsing with her essence, her memory, her love, and her disappointment in him. "Catherine," he whispered. The light flickered, trying to return to her body, but her body had locked it out. The moment of moral rupture had sealed the doors. He kept her soul in a glass jar by his bedside. He talked to it. He wept to it. He begged it for forgiveness. And slowly, he realized he wasn't alone in this ability. There were others who could see souls, catch them, hold them. Most were clergy or medical people, those who'd spent their lives close to death and birth, to the thin places where souls were most visible. Silas began collecting them, not out of malice, but out of a desperate hope. If he could gather enough souls, perhaps he could understand how to return them. Perhaps he could save Catherine. Perhaps he could save everyone. He built the underneath, the network of tunnels beneath Meridian streets, connecting crypts and cellars, wine vaults and forgotten wells. A place where souls could be stored, sorted, cataloged. Other collectors joined him. They formed a guild, a brotherhood, a market. The soul trade began not as commerce, but as curation. They were librarians of the lost, archivists of absence. But markets have a way of becoming what they trade in. The collectors became brokers. The storage became selling. The desperate hollow ones paid fortunes for any chance of reunion, and the brokers learned to negotiate, to hold souls hostage, to trade them like rare wines or precious gems. Silas tried to stop it. He tried to keep the trade pure, focused on reunification. But the night he finally sold a soul, not Catherine's, never Catherine's, but a merchant's soul to a banker's body, both hollow but mismatched, he felt his own soul recoil. It left him between one breath and the next, and now he was hollow too, still clutching Catherine's light in its jar, unable to feel the love he knew he should have for it. unable to remember why he'd started collecting in the first place. He became the first soul broker. The underneath became his kingdom, and Catherine's light slowly dimmed in its glass prison, forgotten on a shelf among thousands of others. Part 5. The city transforms. The change happened slowly, then all at once. Meridian's churches emptied or transformed into places like Magdalene's. The hospitals either closed or became like Adeliza's institute, places that promised healing, but delivered only management of symptoms. The soul brokers multiplied in the underneath, and the hollow ones wandered above, seeking reunion or at least relief. The city government collapsed when the mayor and half the council lost their souls in a single scandal involving bribes and murdered witnesses. No one could govern effectively when they felt nothing about the outcome. The gas lamps began burning day and night because no one could agree on when it was truly dark or light. The city existed in permanent twilight, and somewhere in those years, 1853, 1854, people stopped calling it Meridian. It was Mesmoralia now, the city of death memory, the city of moral death, the city between. Those who could still feel fled to other places. Those who'd lost their souls drifted in, drawn by some instinct that even hollowness couldn't erase. And those who'd caused the hollowing, the soul brokers, the cathedral brothel keepers, the sellers of false salvation, they stayed because they had nowhere else to go. Magdalene ran her house and sometimes remembered being a sister of mercy. Adeliza wandered the streets and sometimes remembered being a doctor. Silas tended his underground collection and sometimes looked at Catherine's jar and almost felt something, and the city held them all in its gray embrace. Neither dawn nor dusk, neither alive nor dead, neither damned nor saved, just hollow, just waiting, just Mesmoralia. Epilogue, when Adeliza forgot, 3 years before Berkeley Lent would seek his lost soul. Adeliza Moth stood at the border of Mesmoralia and the world beyond. She could still leave. She hadn't been here so long that she'd forgotten. She remembered her sister in Boston, her colleagues at the medical college, the research she'd abandoned. But to go back meant facing what she'd become. It meant admitting that her artificial souls had been a lie, that her science had been hubris, that she'd lost herself in the study of loss. In Mesmoralia, no one judged. In Mesmoralia, no one expected her to be anything but what she was, hollow, seeking, suspended. She turned away from the border and walked back into the twilight, and with each step, she felt the memories soften. Her sister's name blurred. The medical college became a vague impression. The reason she'd come here to study, to hide, to find something, dissolved like sugar in water. By the time she reached Merchant Street, she couldn't remember which side of the veil she'd started on. And that was how Mesmoralia kept its inhabitants, not through force, but through forgetting. the city didn't trap you. It simply made you forget there was anywhere else to be. Above her, the sky hung in its eternal almost morning. The posters were already appearing on the walls, and Adele is a moth who'd once tried to build souls, had finally found the perfect subject for her research. Herself, slowly eroding into nothing, with no idea how or why it had begun.